Hello, everybody out there in podcast land. Thank you for joining me again for another episode of the Get Happy podcast with moi, your host. Yes, it's me again, Rudrani Devi. And today I am super duper excited for having this next guest, Miss Carolyn Sinclair, and the crowd goes wild. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Rudrani. This is going to be so fun. And in case you wonder, this is going to be occasionally a four-footed, happy creature jumping in and out.
Oh, by all means, that's
my cat.
Definitely a contribution. So all creatures are welcome.
Yeah. Well, when you started speaking, welcome to, he came running into the room going meow, 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 meow. which he rarely does. So
it's really funny because animals and children respond to my voice, I've noticed. And I used to do my podcasts in another room that my cat was in, but I'm in my healing room. And because there are people that are allergic to little furry beasts, she's not allowed in here. So she used to come up in my lap and be a contribution to the podcast as well, Miss Pepita. So that's, yes. So, Miss Sinclair, would you please tell our listeners now and in the future and those watching on YouTube who you are, what you do, all the things?
Wow. How long have we got?
As long as you'd like, lady.
So I live in Canada and have mostly lived in Canada in my life, grew up here. My first 35 years working was as a classical singer, opera singer. I traveled a lot, had an opera written for me that was magic and lots of stuff. So that was really, I'm so grateful that that's what I chose.
Oh my God, I had no idea. You know that I love to sing. I'm a singer.
Yeah.
But I had no idea. You are going to have to share some things with me. My mother was an opera singer too. You must share some things with me. We're going to connect after this podcast.
Sure.
Maybe we can put a link down here if you have something you can share with our listeners.
Oh, Reformed singers. And I'm so grateful that I chose that because it meant that I didn't have to follow the norm in the world, Oh, she's a singer. I didn't get married until my mid-30s, and I married a musician. So nothing had to change, right? And so I'm very grateful for that. And and I often ask people to look back when they're like, oh, grumbling about this and that. But look and see at what you've chosen that did create such joy in your life. And really, it was hard work learning, and it takes a long time to learn how to sing where it's effortless and filling a concert hall and all that sort of thing. And the joy when that happens is, well, I have that with me forever.
That's fantastic. I love it. And I did not know this about you at all. I don't know how I couldn't have known.
Well,
so I
don't sing now.
Oh, you don't at all?
No.
Not even in the shower?
I never sang in the shower because, of course, it was hard on your voice.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I sing, you don't have to ask me once to sing. That's
and that's awesome.
I even have my prop mic with me wherever I go. It's right here. It's actually a real mic. It's just not plugged in because I have a whole sound system thing back in the day when I was actually rehearsing and performing out there in the world. I've only known you due to Access Consciousness, being a certified facilitator.
Yeah.
And how long have you been doing that?
I think my first Access bars class was in 2012 or 2013. And if someone's listening who hasn't ever taken a bars class or anything with Access, don't do it. Don't do it. You might change your life.
Yeah.
When people ask me, well, what's Access done for you? Silly question, right? Mm-hmm. But I'll say, oh, not much. I'm happier, I'm healthier, I make way more money. My marriage improved. Like, it was so joyful, and not much.
It's funny. So for those of you maybe listening for the first time, access bars is a modality. It's one of the very first classes you can take in access. And it's 32 points on the head that when you touch them in particular groupings, it's like a delete button. It gets rid of these thoughts, feelings, and emotions that were perhaps not even yours, that have been implanted by this reality. And as the founder of Access Consciousness says, Gary Douglas, and it's his fault that we're even having this conversation, it's like the best massage you've ever had with your clothes on. So please, by all means, don't choose it.
No. Well, and Rajani, as you said, that we don't even realize that some of the thoughts that run our life like aren't ours. We picked them up from a teacher when we were 8. I remember when I first started looking at the money things, the point of view I had, like, where did I get those? No one should make more than, I'm just turning my volume up here. I'm quiet. No one should make more than $3,000 a year. Yeah, like, so you can.
I don't make that in a week, then I've failed.
Yeah. Well, and that's for sure not a point of view that I had as an adult, but I picked it up as a little kid somewhere.
Wow.
And so that was running my reality. So what's in there running our choices?
Sure. Well, that's the thing. A lot of us aren't even aware that we can have a choice.
Yeah.
We've been enculturated by this reality, by our family, by our friends, that this is the way it's got to be. I know, for example, I was raised Catholic. And so, that's what you were going to be. When you grew up, you were going to be Catholic. You didn't have another choice of the matter, and it wasn't until I went off to college and discovered that there were a lot of other religions out there. I actually ended up with a religious studies minor because I was so curious about all these other possibilities. And then my choice was, I'll make myself my religion, I guess. I don't know. It's because everything seems so small. It wasn't inclusive. And to me, why not a universal church that includes everything and excludes nothing, and just take what works for me. So that's where I ended up being, but my entire family still Catholic.
Yeah.
And, I know they're all going to be coming for Christmas, and they're all planning on going to midnight mass and the whole thing. And I plan on going to bed early. That's just the way it is. But it's
totally
just a choice. If it was going to create more for me to go, then I would go. And not have a point of view about it.
Yeah, and we have tools to ask questions.
Sure.
And then like, I know this is the question, choice, possibility, and contribution
She
conversation.
Right in there and said it. This is kind of a series I've been doing recently. The 4 sources of creating your life, and it does start with questions.
Yeah, and so. Again, don't try it. But what if you had a decision to make, and there were a few choices you could make, and you just could ask a question?
Sure.
If I choose this, what will my life be like in 10 years? And we say 10 years or 50 years or 500 years because you can't cognitively figure that out.
Right. Takes you out of the equation. Takes your brain out of the equation, y'all.
Yeah. So you're not being run by those subconscious things. But I love that. It makes everything so easy. Yeah. So if I choose this, what might my life be like in 50 years? And if it's like, sort of lightens you up, makes you smile, makes your eyebrows, then yeah. And if it's like, my stomach, I'm like, no, I won't choose that. Thank you. It's like having, it's having tools. It's like having a companion that you can ask questions of.
Yeah, my body loves to participate in that one. So when I go to that place of questioning, and then all these choices start to pop up, my body does this thing where it sort of leans into what it knows it's going to create the most. Makes my decision-making process very easy.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then all these things start to pop up, like all these possibilities. Okay, if I choose this, then what? And then the universe just goes, well, this is a possibility if you choose this, and this is a possibility if you choose this, and this is a possibility if you choose this. And I find that my body goes, oh, wait, And the thing is you can't even get it wrong, because if you choose something that
Yeah,
ends up not
exactly.
working, you get to start,
You can
you can
change.
ask a question. Yeah,
You can
absolutely.
ask another question. Yeah. So I had a really good story from this past week where I work, well, a lot of us work at home now. And
True story.
I actually work for Access Consciousness, which is very fun. And I really needed to get outside and go for a walk. And it was sunny finally. I live in Victoria on Vancouver Island, and right now it rains a lot. So I went out for a walk, and I was like, I get to the end of the driveway and I'm like, okay, which way do I go? And I asked my body, you want to go this way? You want to go this way? So it chose to go that way. And then I walked up to the main street and asking more questions. I had to post some letters, and then I asked a question to go to one of my favorite shops. It's called Good Things, and it's a really kind of high-end consignment shop. And I just kept asking, so what do I go, and where do I go in there? And my body led me to the jewelry counter.
Sounds like my story. Okay.
and I've purchased, or my husband has purchased jewelry there, and they'll be like from estates and all that sort of thing. And I tried on a couple of things, and then I spotted this 3-stone aquamarine ring. And it was just like, me. And so I asked, okay, if I choose you, what will my life be like in 50 years? And it was so light and joyful. And so I tried it on, fit me perfectly, of course.
Like it wasn't made for you at all.
Yeah. And I said to the woman, thank you, I'll take that. She's like, what? Like, well, it's appraised and we can give you the information, you can read it. And I'm like, yeah, that's great, but I'll take it. My body was light. I asked the question, if I choose you, well, and it makes it so easy.
I know. I've taught my mom this tool. We'll be out, she loves to shop, and the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree, obviously. That's one of my favorite things as well. So I've taught her one of the tools of access. It's the same one you just talked about it, but I'll have her ask her body, truth body, if I buy this jacket or whatever it is, will it make me money?
Yeah, that's another version of the same question. It's so awesome.
Right. And that's how it is. I remember when I saw this coat in the window, and I was like, this is I'll model it for those. See, now you're going to have to go to YouTube, y'all, if you're on Spotify or Apple or whatever, so you can see this lovely cheetah ensemble that I have. So it was on a model, and I saw it in the mirror, and the window, and I was like, oh, I want to go to that. I must go to this. And sure enough, I put it on, and my body just went, and I didn't even see the price yet. And I said, yeah, I'm going to have that. And it was like it. And I have it in my office, because if I get cold, it's so much more fun for me to put on this little fur coat than it is for me to throw a blanket on my lap. So,
well, Rudrani and I were just in a 4-day class together on Zoom, of course. And my office is cold. I live in an old house, and there's not much insulation. And I was wearing one of my mink stoles the other day during class.
Saw that. I saw that.
It's like it's older than I am, and but it's so warm. Anyway, yeah, we digress.
It's funny. I don't know what it is. Furs find me. And so I finally decided to dedicate one of my closets to all my furs, and I couldn't get them all in there. Oh my goddess, I have 13 fur coats.
Awesome.
When it gets cold, it's like the warmest thing.
Well, it is. I grew up in Winnipeg, which is like the north of North Dakota, and it's cold, like -40 for at least a week or two. Okay, what's -40? Oh, -40 Fahrenheit and Celsius are the same. It's just bloody cold. You don't go outside, your nose freezes. And so we grew up wearing fur because it was the only thing that kept you warm.
I actually purchased 2 of my fur coats in Canada in one of those consignment shops you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
They find me, you guys, it's very interesting. I mean, it's definitely a contribution. I don't like wearing layers. It's not my thing, unless it's just that one layer on top of whatever I've got going on, right?
Well, I've only got 3 layers. Merino, cashmere, and silk. That keeps me warm.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And I love how you said that you were just taking a walk and your body told you where to go by, you're asking questions. I do the same thing driving.
Yeah.
I'm very righteous about my driving. I consider myself to be one of the best drivers, possible out there in the world, and I've got my mother convinced now too. When I'm in the car, I ask the car, which way we need to go to get to, we know where we're going, but sometimes there's different ways of getting there.
And construction and yeah.
Traffic or time of day and all the things. And Nashville now, it's like everybody wants to be here. So many people are moving here, it's crazy. And so there's a lot more traffic than there used to be. But it's one of those funny things where I'm talking to the car out loud. My mom is listening to me. I'm like, okay, so do we need to go to the right or we're going to the mall? Which way? Of course, because we have to go shopping. Do I need to go this way or that way? And it's amazing. I remember recently using these tools to drive my car, and we went a completely different way than we normally go. And then we were going out for lunch. We arrived at the restaurant, and then somebody else was talking about this terrible accident that had happened that was along the way that we normally go. And we would have been stuck there, if we had gone that way. So it's like this, y'all. You can actually tap into the elementals of this reality. And your body will just know, or your car will just know. I know it sounds strange for me to talk about my car like it's a being, but it is an entity, just like we all are, just like trees and all the things. And you'd be amazed at how much these entities want to contribute to you. And all you have to do is ask. Ask and you shall receive.
And even if you've not done any access consciousness classes or anything like that, or conceived about that, when your gut tells you something, yes or no. I mean, it used to be that I had to get to kind of an extreme case, but I would know, my gut would know. Like I was engaged when I was 25, and just things weren't working. I was uncomfortable, and then one day what I called my gut, right? My intuition was like, no way are you going through with this. So I had to get to like 2 weeks before the wedding. So it's so much easier to have questions to ask. Then you don't have to get to that extreme position of.
Right. It's funny because I was married once, and I did have that intuition of, I'm not sure if this is going to work out. But it was one of those things where, and I'm sure you've heard this story before, I've already mailed out the invitations. We already have everything reserved. My family's been waiting for me to get married for years. I was 39 before I got married.
I was 36, yeah.
So, and I think I was 45 when I got divorced, but we weren't even together for the last 2 years. I think that was right. I don't know exactly, but it was one of those things. And I didn't even bother to ask myself, do I even want to be married? Do I want this kind of relationship? This is what I've been implanted with my entire life, is you found a partner, you got married, you had children, you had, the picket fence, all the things. And, it's not that I didn't enjoy being married. There were times it was kind of fun to have a partner and all the stuff. But if I had been truthful with myself, if I had had the tools of access. And it's interesting because I discovered access in 2003. And that was the year I got married. So I very quickly learned that I had made a mistake, but I didn't want to be wrong. So I kept trudging through it and being, well, he's a real problem, but he's, I can do this, I can get through this. And he would appear to be in an alignment or with whatever I was doing, and then make me wrong for it and all the stuff. And that's what I love about access. It's not that you're right or wrong. It's not, it's not right or wrong or good or bad.
But you can make another choice.
Yeah, it's just a
You can
choice.
choose again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. How cool.
I made jokes about it. If I had found access a year before we got married, I wouldn't have married you. I told him, I was like, because this isn't, working for me.
So if there's anyone listening who's thinking about getting married, you can use the access tools.
That's right.
I mean, the universe was really like just smacked me in the head saying you can't, no farther, you cannot do this.
Right.
And it was only 2 weeks before. So it did cause a bit of a mess. And oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for that awareness. And it would have been easier if I'd had the tools to ask a question.
Sure.
And then when I did choose to get married, it was like, it was like a yes. And Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, talks about that now. And I use it a lot more now because I've been asking questions now for however many years, almost 10, I guess. That it's just a yes, no.
Right.
It becomes that easy, when you have a choice. Yes, no, comes that.
It's like whispers now to me, whereas it used to be, I had to be clobbered over the head,
Yeah.
Now it's
so you might as well practice asking questions and then it becomes easy.
Sure.
I know even my husband would he was skeptical of all the access tools. But he liked that I was happier, and he traveled for his work, and so me traveling for access, no problem. But something, he liked trauma and drama. He was a musician. And he would go into a little bit of trauma about something, and I would ask him a question. He's like, oh, whatever, that stuff. And so I learned not to push him to do it. It took me a year or two, but I learned just to sit back and let him choose what he wanted to choose. And then one day we were driving in the car, and he had a choice to make about whether he was going to take this gig or not, or everything. And I just, I didn't say anything. And then he was quiet for a few minutes. He said, this question thing makes everything so much easier.
Wow.
Like, yeah, it does. And inside I'm going, yay!
I love it, because you were probably already asking yourself, would it be a contribution if I actually opened my mouth?
Exactly.
Well, I think I'm just going to keep my lips shut. And then he got it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, and he was always open to trying different things. He really was wonderful that way. And I only say was because he passed away a year ago. Not that we parted ways otherwise, but yeah.
During COVID.
Yeah, it wasn't COVID.
Got it.
But for him to get that and then use it, it makes everything easier. And why not choose ease in your life?
I don't think people know they can.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. It's like we have, I'm here in the South. Now, I'm not, I guess I can call myself a Southerner because I was born here. I'm born from 2 Italian parents, right? And so I don't talk like this because I was raised, my raisins was with Italian in the household as well. So a lot of us are bilingual in my family. And it's really funny because I would listen to my own family talking about how they couldn't choose something differently because it was their lot in life. I've married this person, I've got to stay with them. I'm Catholic and we don't do that in Catholicism. The church says that you'll go to hell and all this stuff. They got all these preconceived ideas about what they can choose, right?
Yeah.
And what's so funny now is I'm one of 6 and we've all been married and divorced. All 6 of us.
Wow.
And, if you're going to remarry, you have to annul the vows, whether you got divorced or not. It's as if you were never married. It's like they created these rules in Catholicism that if you actually wanted to get remarried, you could, but you would have to annul the first marriage as if it never existed.
Which could be a problem if you have kids.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you do with that? So
Yeah.
I have a sister that she was married and divorced, married very young. She felt she had to do that because in the Catholic faith, you're not supposed to, have premarital dealings. I'll just put it that way. And because she felt like she was going to go to hell. She didn't marry this guy. So she married him and he ends up having all these affairs. So she ends up getting a divorce. And then she meets a Canadian. Yeah, who's Mormon. So they had to go through some kind of something before she could marry him. And the children didn't know she had been married before until after some of them had gotten married and started having children. It was the
Wow, interesting.
yeah, and they live actually in Canada. She has now 6 children also. 5 of the 6 are married and have children. And then I remember visiting once, and we went to this museum. It was in McGrath, Alberta. And we went to this Mormon museum, and it had in it other religions, just like as a footnote. And then there was Catholicism, and my mother said, "Oh, and this is our church." And the kids were like, "There are other churches? Are you kidding?" And I found it amazing because, as I mentioned earlier, I went to college and ended up getting a religious studies minor because I was so curious about what all these other religions were.
Yeah. Well, I was 10 before I realized you didn't actually have to go to church. But I was very aware that there were other churches.
Interesting. Yeah.
I had an aunt who was Jewish, and so I knew about that. And for 3 years we lived in a small town, and my friends went to. So it was just like I thought everybody had to go to church, but you didn't have to go to the same church. Right.
More rules and regulations of this reality and all those structural cohesions, keeping it all in place.
Yeah. And then funnily enough, I one of the things you do as a classical singer, as an opera singer, is be a church soloist.
Of course.
It's a good way for a young singer to make a chunk of money every month. So I sold myself to various churches.
There you go.
And learned about different things. Yeah, it's funny that I can't imagine not asking questions.
I know.
And it's not just you're wrong if you don't ask questions. Not at all. But questioning authority.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody tells you to do something. I remember, I used to question the teachers at school, and they did not like me. But if they spoke in a way that was very racist or prejudiced,
yeah,
I would call them on it. I'd say, I don't understand why you're saying that. Mm-hmm. What is the difference? And yeah, I guess I've been asking questions all my life.
We probably have, and we just didn't acknowledge it. I remember being in the mall with my great aunt, Zia Tanina Di Gesu. And I love this lady. She would be frying chicken, and then she would slide me, a leg, and shh, don't tell anyone, before we actually all sat down, and all this stuff. And just one of the sweetest ladies. Birds would land on her hand. She would feed like crazy, this connection she had with the earth. And I remember us being in the mall once, and there was a couple holding hands walking, and she goes, "Oh, that's just a shame." And I didn't know what she was talking about. And I said, "You don't think they should be holding hands in public?" And she said, "Well, no, she's a white girl and she's with this black boy, and that's just wrong." And I didn't understand it, and I had lived in the South, and desegregation had happened, I think, the year I was born. So by the time, I'm around in school, you've got everybody, Chinese, and here I'm Italian. I have to check the white box though, because there isn't one for Italians, I noticed.
No.
But anyway. Yeah. I mean, my joke is I'm an infinite being pretending to be Rudrani Devi. That's where I'm at now, it's not even gender or any of it. But I just looked at her and said, do you really think that God cares that they're from different backgrounds, or they're both people? And if they like each other, what's the problem? I mean, who wants anybody telling you who you can date and who you can't date? I mean, I remember my parents wanted me to make sure that I married. They didn't care as long as they were Catholic.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, what if I decided I wanted to marry a woman? Would that be okay if she was Catholic? I was like, I would say things that would get me in trouble. I was always
I can't imagine. I never did that.
just pushing the river. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things that, I don't care if people don't like the words that come out of my mouth. Whereas before I used to really bite my tongue, as they say,
Yeah.
pull back. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want anybody to dislike me or whatever it is. And now it's like, I would rather just be who I be. And if they don't like me, that's fine. Go play somewhere else,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, yeah. So the asking the questions it changes everything
Yeah.
when you have a tool like and when you ask a question, then you get awarenesses,
Right. Those whisperings.
those whisperings,
Can you remember a time when you had a decision to make and you were asking questions where these 4 sources really worked for you? Like maybe in the beginning of Access when you first discovered it, and you're like, because for me, when I first discovered it in Access, I was like, okay, I'm going to use it for everything in my life. I was like so excited. You couldn't stop me from asking questions from that point.
Yeah.
Forward. Like a sliced bread moment,
Yeah.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, I think when I think back to those days,
Well,
I think it just expanded what I was already sort of doing, calling it my gut, my intuition and all that sort of thing. But it made it, again, so much easier and so much faster.
True story.
If you take 30 seconds to ask a question, okay, if I choose this, what will my life be like in 50 years? If I don't choose this, what will my life be like in 50 years? And then you get a clear indication. Why not use that? I'm very pragmatic.
Same. Absolutely. Well, we need to pause for a moment to take a commercial break. So hold tight, folks. Don't go anywhere. And we'll be back in just a moment.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Feeling a little funky? Devi Essentials Pure Oil Blends can maximize your inner balance. These 100% pure oil blends are designed to vibrationally open up the channels within the physical and multi-dimensional bodies. Your body. So if you're trying to find your groove, let these pure essential oil blends work for you. For more information, go to rudranidevi.com. That's RUDRANIDEVI.com. And we're back with the lovely Carolyn Sinclair.
Woohoo!
And we've been talking about the 4 sources of creation, how this can create your life and living, starting with a question. And one of the things I wanted to note was this heavy light tool of Access. So I know when a client comes to see me, one of the first things I do is teach them this heavy light tool, because I don't want them just to take my word for whatever it is they're coming to see me for. I can get an idea from their body, maybe what body processes would be a contribution, but I want them to also know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the tools that I teach them. If we do this process, does it make you feel light or heavy? That kind of thing. So why don't we share with the folks out there in podcast land how to actually work this tool?
Sure, that's a great idea.
Yeah, so humor me, you guys, and just, I don't know, just close your eyes for a moment maybe and connect with your body. Put your hands somewhere on your body, wherever you'd like. We can't see you. And hey, body, how you doing? I'm going to start communicating with you. And I want you to show me what's light and heavy, or what's yes and no. Like what we were talking about, what Carolyn was talking about earlier, this yes, no way to go. And so just ask your body to pull all the walls and barriers down, and it will, and expand out in all directions. And it will, just by asking. Nothing you need to do. And ask your body, truth body, if you were going to communicate light to me, or yes, what would that look like, sound like, feel like, taste like? Truth body, show me yes. And just see what your body points to. Maybe it's a sensation or a color or sound. Cool. And now ask your body, truth body, show me heavy, show me no. Whatever it is you'd like to communicate with me, just show me what that would look like, feel like, sound like, taste like. And just see what your body points to. Truth body, show me no. Very cool. Now, just open your eyes. And I like to call it a double blind, and ask your body now, from this expanded space, truth body, show me yes. And just notice what transpires, and then truth body, show me no. Pretty cool, right?
Very cool. All matter is energy. So why wouldn't we ask our body?
Right. And we drag our bodies around like it's, like it's luggage sometimes. Your body's with you all the time. You may as well include it, people.
Yeah.
And then see what that creates in your world,
Yeah. And you can do it, practice it on anything, like which direction do I go? Go to the grocery store and ask what food to buy.
Yeah, I love that tool when I'm in a restaurant where I just scan the menu, and my body will go, hey, that's making me excited.
Well, and the whole restaurant thing is, it's that it might be something that you wouldn't imagine eating normally. And if you follow what your body is asking, if you follow the light, it'll be like the most delicious thing you've ever had. There's a new, those hand pocket things. I don't know if they're big in the US. They're like hand pies or.
Oh, like a hot pocket?
Yeah, I guess
it's
so.
Like a crust, and then it's filled with things. And
Yeah. We call them hand pies.
Hot pockets in the United States. Yeah.
So there's a new place called Salt Chuck, and I was running around doing all kinds of errands one day, and I was really hungry, and I'm like, okay, body, I need a place to stop. And I looked at that and I went, oh, okay. There was a parking spot, of course. And I went in, and my eye went straight for this pocket that was ham hock and rabbit.
I love rabbit, by the way.
I do too. I mean, I lived in England for a while, and you get rabbit at the grocery store like you do chicken. But anyway, but I wouldn't necessarily have chosen it because I don't eat a lot of pork. But I chose that, and I had to stop and park while I was eating it because it was so delicious that I couldn't drive and eat it at the same time. I was like, oh, moaning and everything. I'm like, wow, that was such a clear indication. Wow. My body was like that. And it was light. And
hey, your body knows. Your body is actually brilliant, you guys. It's smarter than you are. Mm-hmm. It's actually more aware than you are. So you may as well listen to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So absolutely. I mean, it's your body that gets the awareness.
Yeah.
And it kind of clues you in. I love that story. I'm going to use that story in some of my classes if you do not mind.
Because I do not mind at all.
That is a fabulous story. I remember one Christmas, I don't know, years ago, where I had like 3 different Christmas dinners, and every time, and it was different restaurants. And I don't know what was going on, but it was like there was quail on the menu every single time, and my body wanted the quail. And I was like, maybe it had quail once in my life before. And so the second meal I went out for, I'm looking at the menu and I see the quail, but I want to eat something different because I just had quail like last week. My body goes, no, you want that. And it was very interesting because it was and they were made differently in all three places, but it was like the best thing I'd ever had.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it's so fun to do that. As you say, you look at the menu and I'll ask, okay, this page, that's heavy. This page, that's light.
Yeah.
And then the third page, no, that's heavy. So I'll light. And then I'll just like the first thing your eye lights on, or you can run your finger down the page. And I've just learned to listen, to ask the question, and then the choice comes up or the possibility. It's just there. And it's always delicious. Now, I don't always listen to the quantity part.
Oh no. I had that conversation with Heather Nichols once where I said, it's the weirdest thing I'll eat. And then all of a sudden my body will be like, oh, I don't like this anymore. And I'll just stop. Then I take it home and I end up like the next day or something, adding something to it. But it's funny. It's for me, even if I'm like halfway through a cheeseburger and all of a sudden the next bite I have is like, oh, I really shouldn't have taken that last bite. My body is a very good indicator for me. I don't go unconscious when it comes to the food.
I was just, I had a conversation with Gary, and it was in an advanced body class, which is a very fun class, and talking about just that thing about listening to your body. And he said that, he'll order, Ben generally just orders an appetizer, and, takes 3 or 4 bites, and then he's done. And I said, well, I'll order an appetizer. I'll ask questions, order the appetizer. And but I love it so much that then I order another one of the same, so I can have more. And so
I see. No, I know where you're going with that. When I go get sushi, I don't order it all at once. I'll order a couple of things and then ask my body if it wants more. And then I order a couple more things. Like my favorite thing is yellowtail. So I might order that 2 or 3 times. But it's funny because I'm kind of the opposite. I don't really want to take food home with me. So I would rather eat it there and leave, So it's just an awareness. I mean, you guys, it's very interesting how you can use these tools.
Yeah, and you can ignore them too.
Yes, or not.
Yeah, exactly.
And how many of you have, and I'm just going to throw this out there because we just did a relationship done different class. How many of you have actually, you've been on a date with somebody and within 15 minutes that this is not something you want to keep going with, but you continue the date anyway because you feel like you have to, you've already committed, to it.
And you don't want to be rude. You don't want to make them feel bad, but actually,
it would be a kindness to go, what, this isn't working out for me. I'll give you an example of that one, which is so funny. I use it when I'm teaching my relationship done different classes. I was on dating sites. This was before COVID. And there was this one guy that I had seen his profile several times, but I was always using the heavy light tool and it would never be light. And then all of a sudden it was light. And I thought, well, that's really weird. And I don't have an age thing. I think he was like 15 years younger than me. And I'm so immature. It's my joke. It's more fun for me to date younger than me, or at least that's what my point of view was at that time. And that's what showed up. So he comes in, he's a very fit guy. We I'm sitting at the bar because there was no other place to sit. And I normally meet people for coffee, but because he lived an hour from me, he wanted to meet after he had dinner. So I'm at the bar and he comes up and we start talking, and he's sort of getting kind of touchy-feely. And I'm like, I don't know you well enough for you to be manhandling me or pawing me or whatever it is. And so we were looking at stuff on our phone, Facebook and all of this. And all of a sudden pops up on my screen that your book is now available in Portuguese. And so I made this sound. I was like, ah! I mean, like literally like that. And he goes, what was that? Because it just popped up while I was showing him something. And I said, my book is now available in Portuguese. And he goes, oh, your book? And he goes, you wrote a book? And I said, well, it's my 3rd book. but I'm really very happy with this book. It's called Choosing Happiness, which is the whole reason why we have the Get Happy podcast, y'all. So I said, it now speaks Portuguese. And he goes, choosing happiness. And he goes, some people can't choose happiness. There we go. Right. And I'm like, really?
Them's fun words.
I know. I was like, what do you mean you can't choose happiness? And he goes, well, what about if your lot in life, here we go, your lot in life is this, and you grew up in a poor family and da 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 da. And then I threw out the Oprah Winfrey, option where she was very poor and worked her way through and all this stuff. And she seems to be awfully happy with all that money now that she's making, that, she chose something different. She was able to outcreate the life that she came from. And he didn't like that example, of course. And then he starts getting kind of heated with me about it, like it's a debate. And I'm like going, okay, how can I get out of this? And I thought, well, I'm going to throw out the Mumbai card. Why not? So I tell him, well, out of all the people in the world that shouldn't be happy, you could point to me, because I was raised, in a very strict family. My father was very strict. I mean, he didn't spare the rod at all. And I, was in a marriage where my husband cheated on me and all this stuff. And then I went out into the world to ashrams and all of this in India, and I get shot by terrorists. I can't walk. They say I'm never going to walk again. I said on and on and on and on and on. But I didn't. I chose differently. I chose to live. I chose to learn how to walk. I chose all these things. And you could see him melting. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to have a second date with this guy, but I'm going to stick it out because, I'm going to be polite. And Carolyn, no joke, within 2 or 3 minutes, he's coming right back to the same debate. And he's getting so heated that people are now rubbernecking to see who this crazy guy is that's kind of screaming at me, right? And energetically, you could feel that people were getting really uncomfortable for me. Mm-hmm. And so this is what I did, y'all. Walls and barriers down, expanding out. I very calmly put on my coat and, took a last sip from my drink and said, okay, you know what? I can really appreciate this conversation we're having. And I can see that, you're really pushing your points of view and all this, but I can also see that it's making you very angry. So I'm going to go now. I just walked out, and everybody in the bar that was close enough, and hearing what you pretty much could hear in most of the restaurant at that point, stood up and applauded as I walked out.
That's awesome.
I turned around, I took a bow, as one does.
Yes.
And then I got in my car, and I'm talking to my car, Bianchina, which is white. It's a white car. My mom named. Yeah. When I bought I have a GLC Mercedes, and when I bought her, my mom was like, "You have to name her. You have to name her." I said, "Well, let's not make it an Italian name." And then, of course, she came up with Bianchina, which is white.
Little white. Right?
Little white.
Yeah.
So I go, Bianchina, you're not going to believe this. So this date I had, it was like the best thing ever. I mean, I had fun. I learned something, I learned that I'm not willing to cut my arms and legs off for people, that I'm willing to not be liked, that I'm willing, all this stuff was such a gift for me. And there's that heavy light tool, because I was sitting there going, he wasn't light before, and all of a sudden he's light. Why is he light? I can see that this guy is kind of creepy and all of this. And what it was it was showing me that I was willing to be all of me. And it did create greater for me. Yeah. So sometimes, you guys, it doesn't show up the way you think it's going to.
It never shows up the way you think it's going to.
Yeah. That's the thing. If you can be in the space of, I don't care how it shows up, you'll be able to create even more for your world. So that's my little story about the heavy light tool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And another question that we ask is, what's right about this? Yeah. Something seemingly uncomfortable or awful is happening, and you can always ask, okay, what's right about this?
Yeah.
And you will get an awareness.
Sure. Yeah. What was right about that date? It showed me that I am willing to step into all of me without apology. And I didn't have to get all stirred up by him screaming and yelling. Whereas in the past, I can remember my husband kind of gaslighting me that way. And I would just try to out scream him. and then I would lose my voice, and and nothing changed.
Exactly.
So, it worked out for me. It worked out for me. I'm so glad that he impregnated somebody and had to leave the marriage. Who knows? Who knows what my future would have been like
Yeah.
if that hadn't happened. Thank you, universe. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
So, and I've loved this conversation so much. It never goes where I think it's going to go either.
No.
Just kind of,
No. And you just ask a question. I mean, when you asked me if I would join it, I was just like, okay, yes, no. And it was like, yes.
absolutely.
And
I'm so delighted. What a contribution this conversation has been. So I could talk to you forever.
Yeah.
I do have to ask you one more question though, because it is the Get Happy podcast.
Yes.
So will you tell our listeners what you do to get your happy on?
The first tool that comes up, and it has been, I know, I don't want to, well, my husband passed away a year ago, like a year and 10 days ago.
Gotcha.
Or a year minus 10 days, whatever. And I got that it was his choice. He had some health issues and he just hated his body at that point. And what got me to happy is gratitude.
Mm. Wow, my whole body just is tingling right now. Like I'm perceiving the energy of.
Yeah, I just chose gratitude every day, every moment. I mean, of course I miss him, and it's it was such a co-creation, such a creationship that we had, especially the last, say, 10 years. But it's gratitude. I'm so grateful that we knew each other for 40 years.
Right.
We weren't married for 40 years. But I'm so grateful for everything that he brought to our lives. And I'm so grateful for all the fun we had and the traveling we did and the music making we did and all that. So that gratitude always gets me to happy.
Wow, I love that. Attitude of gratitude, y'all. And you could take it one step further too. I mean, how many of you have true gratitude for yourself, for showing up for you?
Yeah.
Right? Or for your body. I mean, I'm so grateful for my body.
Yeah. I have a chiropractor now. He's a network chiropractor and he does, anyway, it's amazing. And sessions are an hour long with him.
Wow.
And basically that's what he does. And we talk about, just loving your body. And he's, doing sort of massage like things or whatever he does. I just I'm so grateful that I was introduced to him. But that gratitude, we always look at things we have to fix. What about if look at things we are grateful for?
Right.
I know Rudrani and I are both grateful for our curls. There's a lot of curls going on in this podcast.
I have to go to YouTube now because my hair gets more compliments than I do. So
I'm there too. And mine's quite subdued today. But that's okay.
It's funny because we'll be in the mall again, right? And I'll have people stop me. And my mom will be like, that's like the third person that said something about your hair. And I said, I've had people pick me out of a crowd from the back of my head. Definitely very grateful for this mop I got going on here.
For the curls, yeah.
Yes, indeed.
And I'm grateful for you, Rudrani, and all of the contribution that you be every day.
Thank you. I'll receive that. And I'm super grateful for you. And I know how much you do for Access.
Well,
my friend Leanne keeps me posted.
Oh, yeah.
I know you guys do a lot for Access, and what would we do without you? So thank you so much for the contribution you do.
Again, I am grateful every day, every minute, every hour. Yeah. Don't choose, don't ask questions.
I was just getting ready to say, imagine what that could create for you. Start with one thing. Yeah. Maybe you have a gratitude list, and every time you think of another thing you're grateful for, add it to the list. I'm grateful for my very breath. I'm grateful for my heart that beats without me asking it to. I mean, I love my body so much because it went through a lot.
Yeah.
And it's still ticking.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love it. I love this conversation so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Yes.
Madrani. Thank you.
If you guys enjoyed this podcast, please share it with others. Maybe hit the subscribe button, the like button. And I do read all the comments. So if there's something that you would like for us to talk about in one of the podcasts, please, by all means, let me know. And until next time, you guys, ciao, ciao for now.
Arrivederci.